Today in current events from a Christian perspective, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker, who I'm sure you've heard about at this point, is in hot water over a graduation speech that he gave where he said true things from the Bible. And yeah, that's what we need to talk about in current events from a Christian perspective. We'll see how much of it we get through, but it will be interesting. Meanwhile, NBC has launched a new show, and they want you to think that all animals are gay, so you should be too, or something like that. It's wild. And finally, the based governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, once again makes waves. All this and more today. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. Welcome back to Church Public. Again, I'm your host, Matt Odegaard, and I really appreciate you stopping by today. Your time is valuable. I want to honor that, and we want to look at current events from a Christian perspective to help you live out your faith in all of these wild aspects that we're seeing more and more. There are some things that we'll look at today that hopefully will help. If it is helpful to you, you can hit the like button, subscribe, leave a review. If you want to share this with some friends, that's helpful because I want more people to know about Jesus, and we need to understand how to live out our faith in real life. So you can do that as well. And of course, you can support at churchpublic.com/support. All right, let's get to some news. Listen, I know you all have seen this, heard about this, probably seen endless commentary about Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker and his graduation speech at the Benedictine College. He is by his admission, a Catholic, and he was saying Catholic things at a Catholic college graduation. So that is the foundation of everything that's going on here, and you need to understand that as we kick off and get into this. I have the full thing here. It's 20 minutes. I recommend watching the full thing. I don't think we're going to do that today. I think we're just going to watch a minute or two and then talk about some of those pieces. We'll see. We'll see how we feel. And I mean, hey, if you want me to do the full 20 minutes and I will pause it at every point I feel like saying something and say something, I can do that for you. I'm just not sure you want to see that. So I'm not planning to do that today, but leave a comment. And if you want me to do that, I'll do that for you. I will do that for you. All right. Anyway, there's a bunch of other things to go on, but the foundation is he's a Catholic and he was speaking at a Catholic graduation and he said Catholic things. And man, for that, the world just crazy exploded and hates him. There was a change.org, which is people petition to get things changed, right? So change.org. I didn't look at the last number of signatures, but there were hundreds of thousands of signatures trying to get him fired from the Kansas City Chiefs or who knows, arrested or thrown into the gulags. I mean, that's what you do with people these days, I think. So they were trying to get rid of him because you can't say Bible things on TV. Like you can't do that. And he wasn't even on TV because he was just at this graduation ceremony. But because the internet is everywhere and forever, of course, they were trying to cancel him. They're trying to get rid of him. And it's just humorous to me that this is where we are. It'd be sad, like you should be crying because it's so sad, but really it's just humorous because you say true things. I don't know if you can see here. I've got my Bible next to me because it's important to talk about the Bible. I mean, hey, listen, we'll even start with this. I wasn't planning on doing this, but we'll start with this. This is Paul. So Paul, wrote a majority of the New Testament. He was an apostle appointed directly by Jesus on the road to Damascus. You can read about that story in Acts. It's a great story of the reality of how Paul was called to be an apostle, and plant all these churches, and then wrote letters to the churches that he planted, and that comprises now the majority of the New Testament. Anyway, so reading in Ephesians 4, Paul says this in verse 14, as a result, will no longer be children tossed here and there by waves. Here, listen to this. And carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men, by the craftiness and deceitful scheming. But, verse 15, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in all aspects unto him who is the head, even Christ. And he goes on in there and ends with the building of the body in love. Now, why did I read that for you? I read that for you because Paul is talking about how you are to live as a Christian. And he's talking about this problem that the Christians at that point and the Christians at this point still have, and that is we hear a lot of words. The culture is very strong in saying the words that they want to say, and we say, okay, we're just going to do whatever the culture says. Paul, very clearly in this and the rest of Ephesians, says, no, you're not supposed to do whatever the culture says. He says, Don't be like children tossed about in the waves, but rather be firm in your faith, be firm in your foundation, which is Jesus Christ, and say the true things, which is the foundation for what we're about to hear on some of these clips today. And to provide more foundation for this, I looked up the stated mission of Benedictine College, and that is, quote, to provide education within a community of faith and scholarship, emphasizing the balance of activity and contemplation and the glorification of God in all undertakings, end quote. So he's a Catholic, speaking to Catholic people at a Catholic graduation. And man, the internet just went all crazy. I'm going to play this first clip. We'll see how much of the rest of this I will play, but let's go with this.
Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice. It is safe to say that over the past few years, I've gained quite the reputation for speaking my mind. I never envisioned myself nor wanted to have this sort of a platform, but God has given it to me, so I have no other choice but to embrace it and preach more hard truths about accepting your lane and staying in it.
Man, I mean, so good, right? So good. There's so much there. I'll dissect a little bit of it, and then we'll probably move on. There were some other things about marriage he talked about and family that also were really, really good. I highly encourage listening to the whole 20-minute thing. Again, I probably will not play the whole 20-minute thing for you today, but go and listen to it or leave a comment and say, hey, Matt, I would love for you to just go line by line through this whole 20-minute thing. And I will do that for you if you want me to, but I didn't think anybody wanted that today. So here's the deal. Man, he talked about so much, and he just leads with a cannonball, and I quite like that. But we're going to start at the end of that little clip and just say that one of the things he talked about was courage, and we need that. We need to be courageous. Man, I've been talking about that for years at this point, especially on this particular podcast. We just need to have courage, and by and large, that is not a value of this society. In fact, the opposite value is the thing that the entire culture pushes, and that is safety. This whole culture for several years now has said you just need to be safe. You need to do everything to be safe. And he even talked about it. You need to be in the Church of Nice. You need to be nice to everyone, do whatever they want you to do, and make sure everyone is safe. Neither of those things are biblical values. I'll pause the video right here. Pause the video and go look through the Bible and find for me where it says you just need to be nice and make sure everyone is safe. I'm waiting. They're not in there. I'll give you a spoiler. Those are not in there. What Jesus does say, and what many of the writers say, is something to the effect of, like, for instance, Jesus says, take courage or take heart, I have overcome the world. And right before that, he says, you're going to have trouble in the world. He doesn't say when you have trouble in the world. He says, you will have trouble in the world, but take heart, I've overcome the world. Have courage. Take heart. Again, this is the same word in there. Take heart, have courage. It's the same word. We need to have courage. It's not about being safe. It's about being courageous. Hear me. I'm not saying be dumb, but just be courageous. And Sometimes that is the opposite of what the culture is doing, and we need to be able to stand up in the truth. That's why I read for you this Ephesians passage to say, yes, we're supposed to have love and we're supposed to share in the love, because Jesus, when asked what is the best and greatest commandment, of course he says, love God. And then right after he says, the second is just like it, love one another. Those are clearly scriptural words and clearly biblical foundation for reality. However, the question has to come back to, then what is love? And for instance, the most repeated command in the entire Bible is, do you know it? Don't be afraid. And at the same time, we're told to fear God. How can those two things be real? How can those two things exist at the same time? Matt, isn't that a contradiction? How can you not be afraid but also fear God? It's because you have to have your fear prioritized in the right place. Fear correctly prioritized is to fear the one that is the creator, and fear in a reverent sense, fear to know that the creator loves you and cares for you and is the king of the world and the universe and all creation. And those that are in the world are not in charge, and they are not the creator, and therefore you should not fear them. There are other places in Scripture. I could look it up for you if you want me to here, or maybe there's a search for you. Look for at least two places where the Bible says, why should I fear man? What can man do to me? Instead, fear God. So those are biblical realities that we have to have courage, and we have to understand the priority of the world, the priority of the universe, with God as the head, and then the rest of us. A really smart guy said one time, there's two things I know. There is a God, and I'm not him. So we need to have our courage placed correctly. This world does not. Harrison Butker made a great statement to show us, hey, we need to follow after the right thing. And yes, I can give the small asterisk here that I am not a Catholic, and there are things that we disagree on theologically. However, in this statement that he gave, in this presentation that he gave, I'm pretty aligned with almost everything that he said, because what he was saying was just clearly biblical. If you do the same thing that I will say every single time, read the Bible and do what it says, I don't care what denomination you are, read the Bible and do what it says. Now, again, there's some beliefs. We can talk theology. The theology podcast will be another one later. And I, of course, line up with Protestant theology, not Catholic theology. But I can still love you, and I can still agree. When you say things that are true in the Bible, I'm going to line up right behind you and say, yes, let's do the things that are in the Bible. So he starts off now with this clip. I've talked too much, so let's listen to a little bit more again, and we'll kind of go a little bit through it. Check it out. Give me a second to press a button over here, and we'll get this guy going. There we go. Nope, she don't want to go. Hang on.
Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media.
Man, I mean, just like dropping bombs all over the place, right? So he's just saying, right? Like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, those are things that undermine the value of life, because they posit that your life is only valuable outside of the womb. Your life is only valuable when you are a real person, whatever a real person means, and that is dependent, according to the left, according to a lot of this culture, based on your placement in the world, not your actual standing in reality. Like everyone knows that conception begins at birth, because that's just basic 8th grade biology. But we can't say that. You just have to say a clump of cells or some ridiculous euphemism or some arbitrary weak designation, rather than understanding the actual reality of biology, in that life begins when life begins. So he nails that on the head. Of course, the pro-abortion side is super angry about him for all of that. And he said some other things about marriage, family, wives, mothers, and I'm not going to get into that one today, but man, he just went on and on. Let's listen to a little more of this, and then we'll talk about it.
All stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally.
Yeah, if you missed that, Biden was at an abortion rally and he made the sign of a cross. It's just wild, and he keeps going on. I won't beat this one to death, but what we need to understand is he was saying basic biblical things, and the left went nuts and tried to get him canceled. I think I have one of the clips here. The NFL, according to, I think this is USA Today, the NFL distances itself from controversial comments made by Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker. Very controversial, that you should not kill babies and you should be married and stay married and have children. And then the byline here, if you're just listening, is the NFL has condemned Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker's controversial graduation speech at Benedictine College in Kansas. I'm not sure they actually condemned it. They did say, I might have the article here. Let me take a look here. All right, I got the article here. The NFL has distanced itself from controversial comments the kicker Harrison Butker made during the commencement speech. Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, there's a great title, Jonathan Bean, said Harrison Butker gave a speech in his personal capacity. His views are not those of the NFL as an organization. The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger, end quote. So he was speaking at a private Catholic college at a private graduation. Did anybody think he was officially the NFL designator there? Like, really? You have to say that? Guess you have to say that. That's the world we live in. By the way, like, I'm not going to go through the roll call, but there are a lot of NFL players who do really gross things with and to women and driving incidents and other things. I don't remember strongly worded letters from the NFL saying we strongly disagree with that particular NFL player who beat his wife, or that particular NFL player who got a driving while intoxicated and driving 110 miles an hour. I don't remember the NFL distancing themselves from them. I might be wrong. You can send me those articles if I'm wrong, but you say, hey, don't believe in abortion or be, faithful to your spouse and give your spouse a great home, give your wife a great home, and raise your kids well. Man, we got to distance ourselves from that. That is not inclusive. It's very not inclusive of him. How dare he? So it keeps going on. This is USA Today. During the 20-minute speech, he expressed sexist and anti-LGBTQIA+, I didn't add any letters, that's really what it says, opinions, alluding to, quote, dangerous gender ideologies. I'm just going to, yeah. Oh, here's another quote that I don't have the clip for this. This is really good. I mean, I could find it in the 20-minute speech, but this is a really good one. This is from Butker, quote, not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, but the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify him, end quote. Man, I mean, right? And by the way, depending on when you're listening to this, we're very close to the June, which is going to be a lot of pride coming out in the June. I'm interested to see what's going to happen this June after some of the other Junes we've had, but we should have some interesting things to talk about. And he called it out and said, hey, don't, there's a deadly sin of pride. Yes, pride is a deadly sin, biblical reality. And yet we, culture, America, has a whole month dedicated to it. So he's like, no, let's not do that. There's some more quotes in here. I'm gonna skip those quotes for now. You guys kind of get the idea. But here's another thing that I was as I was looking at that and watching some of this happen. So he gives a graduation speech and is just torn apart by the entire nation and liberal media and everything. I saw another graduation very recently, and this is Kelsey, who also is on the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to play this for you. I think I'll turn down the audio and kind of narrate what happens. And then I'll, you draw your own conclusion, but I'm going to show you this graduation. This was not a graduation speech, but this was apparently Kelsey actually graduating. Let's watch this. It's a little loud. I'm going to turn it down here. So I'm going to narrate this for you if you're just watching. Kelsey, also on the Chiefs, is currently slamming a beer on the stage while accepting his degree. Slams it on the ground. It explodes all over, apparently, the front row, which would be unfortunate if you're sitting in the splash zone there, and then hugs a bunch of people. So listen, is that immoral behavior? Questionable. Is it bad behavior? 100% yes. Like you're graduating from a college, and in your graduation, your statement, without words, but your statement, right, to the world is drink beer and party and throw your beers on the ground and get the front row saturated in the splash zone with your beer. That's what a graduation to him is. Apparently, that's what we just saw. Whereas you get Butker, who is well dressed. He has his gown, graduation gown on, and gives an excellent and well articulated speech about living biblical values. And he is just destroyed by the media. And that's whataboutism. I get it. But at the same time, like, we have to understand that there are two worlds happening right now. And one of them is approved because I didn't, other than some conservatives, I didn't hear anybody look at Kelsey's graduation and go, that was really gross and weird, which it was. And I heard everybody say Butker was just terrible. He should be fired. Like, everyone is saying all of this. All right, so we're going to land this plane and end on this place where this was a few days ago, which is why I'm not going to go into all of the detail. I probably went into more than you wanted to know, but I felt like, from a Christian perspective, this is important to understand because the culture has come so hard against it. We need to understand from a Christian and biblical perspective, how are we supposed to live in light of all of this shenanigans and the world that is just more and more against us? And it just is. The world is against Christianity. It's against biblical values. They hate it. They just want to destroy it wherever it comes up. But cultural values, drinking beer on stage during your graduation and throwing it on the people in the front row is just celebrated and praised because this culture says you should be able to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, with whoever you want to do it, with no consequences. That's what this culture is saying, unless, of course, what you want to do is say there's a value and a standard that's higher than you, and you really should live up to it. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want, but you probably should do the right thing. I'll give you this verse. Let's see. I want to get the verse right here. This is 1 Corinthians. We'll go with 1 Corinthians 10:23. Paul says a similar thing in 1 Corinthians 6. But he says, everything is lawful. Everything is lawful. You can do whatever you want. However, there's a very large but after this. All things are lawful. All things are permissible. But not all things are beneficial. So what is he saying there? Paul is saying, sure, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. There's freedom in grace. There's freedom from the law. You can do whatever you want to do. But things you do have consequences, and not just to you. Things you do have consequences to those around you, to your family, to your friends, to the community, to the culture. The things that you do make a difference. So when Jesus says, I didn't come to abolish the law, I came to fulfill the law, what he's saying is the 10 Commandments still have a place. The value of loving your neighbor is loving them in the context of the law, in the context of the foundation. Can you keep that law perfectly? No. Does it lead to your salvation? No. Should you follow the Bible because you want to obey, because you love God and want to serve him with all your heart and soul, your mind and strength? Love God, the first commandment? Yes. Obviously, yes. That's what Paul is saying here. All things are allowed, not all things are good. And that's what we have to understand. That's what we have to parse when we see stuff like this and we see the world celebrating getting drunk at your graduation and throwing beer on people. And the world is condemning, saying, hey, you should not get drunk and throw beer on people, but you should live according to what the Bible is telling you to do. Should be that simple. This world, of course, makes it all crazy and complicated. So I'll end with this. Harrison Butker, did another event. I think it was just yesterday, maybe the day before at this point, and had a short response to all of this. I'm not sure he expected what was going to happen. He was just speaking from his heart, and I appreciate that. And he even mentioned we need to stand up and be courageous. We need to be men standing up and being courageous, because men do lead the culture. You can yell and argue about that, but the reality is men do lead. They're created to lead. Go back to Genesis 1, Genesis 2. Men are created to lead. That's just the role that God has given them. You can argue about that, and the problem is they're either good leaders or bad leaders. So we need more good leaders. We need them to stand up and be good leaders. And Harrison Butker is calling men to be good leaders. And we need more and more and more of that. So he said this as a response, and we'll go through this and kind of move on to the next thing. Here we go.
If it wasn't clear that the timeless Catholic values are hated by many, it is now. Over the past few days, my beliefs, or what people think I believe, have been the focus of countless discussions around the globe. At the outset, many people expressed a shocking level of hate, but as the days went on, even those who disagreed with my viewpoints shared their support for my freedom of religion. In my 7 years in the NFL, I've become familiar with the positive and negative comments, but the majority of them revolve around my performance on the field. But as to be expected, the more I've talked about what I value most, which is my Catholic faith, the more polarizing I have become. It's a decision I've consciously made, and one I do not regret at all. If we have truth and charity, we should trust in the Lord's providence and let the Holy Ghost do the rest of the work. Our love for Jesus, and thus our desire to speak out, should never be outweighed by the longing of our fallen nature to be loved by the world. Glorifying God and not ourselves should always remain our motivation, despite any pushback or even support. I lean on those closest to me for guidance, but I can never forget that it is not people, but Jesus Christ who I am trying to please. Thank you again for being here.
I mean, I could not say it better myself, so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to reiterate, it is not people, but Jesus Christ who I am trying to please. Well said, sir. Well said. Meanwhile, in other news, I mean, if you've got a little more time to stay with me, there's just some wild things happening, and I couldn't help myself by putting a couple more things in. So we're going to talk about a couple more things, and that is that. I don't even want to talk about this one, but I'm going to, because you have to know what's happening in the news, and sometimes what we talk about is current events in media. So I noticed, based on an ad that was bouncing around social media, on NBC, there is a new show coming out for this Pride Month, celebrating Pride. So there's a new show coming out on NBC, and it is called Queer Planet. This is a real show. It's coming out, Queer Planet. If you're just listening, it's got two flamingos in a heart. I'm actually not going to play this full trailer because I was listening to it earlier, and some of the trailer for the show is wildly inappropriate. So I'm going to play just a little bit of it and try to stop it before it gets too terrible. But let's just hear a little bit of what NBC is trying to show you.
Our planet is home to over 11 million species.
The paparazzi really are everywhere.
Everything you were taught as a kid is wrong.
You make me wanna dance. Gay penguins, bisexual lions, sex-changing clownfish.
This is a queer planet.
Queerness has always existed. It's only in humans that we have such a stigma about it.
The idea of just having two fixed sexes is clearly out of style.
Okay, that's all I can handle with that. It goes wild and just gets more and more terrible after that. Here's where we got to go with this. At one point, I don't even know if I played enough of the clip to show this, but at one point they say Mother Nature is wild or something. Here's I'm going to try to say as little as possible about this, but I don't know what's going to happen here. They talk about gay penguins and all of this other shenanigans here's what I don't want you to miss. The point of this trailer and the point of this show is to say nature, and then they point to Mother Nature, which again is like a pagan deity that it's so I gotta go off on this tangent. I'm sorry, I can't help it. They constantly say, you guys are terrible. Like, we just listened to a whole thing where the media has said, you can't tell me that there's a sky daddy that's saying what's right and wrong and point to that as an example of what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. Like, that's the whole point of Harrison Butker's thing. You can't say that the Bible says this and because Sky Daddy says this and I'm supposed to do that. You can't say that. And at the same time, they put out shows like this Queer Planet Shenanigans, that says, hey, by the way, Mother Nature is gay, or all the animals are gay or something, so you should be gay because that's how nature is. So you should just do that. Like, does anybody else see the parallel here? The parallel is you can't tell me there's a Bible and there's a God that tells me what I'm supposed to do, because you can't tell me what to do. But Mother Nature says what I'm supposed to do, so you absolutely should do that. Nobody? Anyway? Yeah. So that's one thing that's happening here that apparently people miss, and it drives me nuts when they do crazy stuff like this. And it's just incongruous and incoherent. And anyway, so that's one level. The second is they're making the case. The argument is nature is gay or queer or whatever, so you should be too. So I have a question. Is your argument that we should just look at what animals do and do that because that's what's morally correct? And that's what it seems like. The argument is nature is gay, so morally you can be gay. So I have a question. When animals eat their young or animals eat each other, is that what we're supposed to do too? When animals kill each other? And it's survival of the fittest, and like the king of the jungle, like, is that also what we're supposed to do morally? Like, do you extend your morality to the animal kingdom says this, or Mother Nature, pagan deity says this, so that's what we're supposed to do? Like, where is your line? What is your limiting principle here? And I would propose humbly, this is a terrible strategy for running a civilization. You're taking your moral cues from what animals do to and with each other. There are words for this in anthropology, and none of them are good. Like, none of the outcomes of this are good, even from an anthropological perspective, which is a scientific perspective, which I think is what you're saying. But really what you're saying is you've thrown science out the window, and science doesn't matter. Let's just do what feels right because we're just animals. That, of course, is morally terrible advice for everyone, because it leads to, well, then you can just kill each other. Well, then you can just rape and pillage and plunder and do all of the bad things because who cares? Because we're just animals. But of course you can't say that, because everyone at a moral level, regardless of education or biblical foundation, goes, well, no, we're not saying that. And I agree. You should not say that. You should not do that. That's a terrible reality, and it would lead to terrible consequences. And history is full of civilizations that have tried to do things like that and say, yeah, just do whatever you want because it doesn't matter because you're just an animal. This is terrible. Everyone knows this is terrible, but now we're running these shows back and saying, well, nature does this, so you should just do this. It's fine. Everything's fine. There's no consequences. Nothing is wrong. There's no bad. No bad can happen. I mean, if you say, you want to confine my morality to something more than I want to do, like if you want to confine my morality to the Bible or to actual God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of creation, like you can't tell me that because you can't legislate my morality, but I should be able to do whatever I want to do with whoever I want to do it, whenever I want to do it with no consequences, right? Leading to abortion, IVF, killing old people because they're just not valuable anymore. Like that's where all of this leads. And that is exactly what we're seeing because that's what this culture values. Which is why, as silly as this wild queer show is, we have to notice this is going on. I know none of you who are listening are probably going to watch that show. Maybe it'll come on your TV and you go like, oh, and change the channel. But you need to understand this show is out there and there are people who are going to watch it and there are people who are going to go, oh, well, that sounds right. We should do that. And you need to understand from a Christian perspective how to counter wild arguments and radical arguments like this when they come up and say, no, this is not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for anyone. Okay. that was too much on that. And I'm going to land one more. If you all have time, stick with me because this is a fun one. We're going to end on a fun one. Hopefully you enjoy this. And that is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, once again, being based, being awesome, doing awesome things, and making the left big mad by promising to light up the bridges in pretty colors. I'm going to play this video first and then and then you can decide what you think about it. So here is the video of some people talking about what Florida did, and then I'll tell you exactly what they did.
Well, summer kickoff is here, and whatever your summer plans are, I bet they aren't as...
Press the wrong button. Give me just a moment. We're going to flip this here. Nope, we're having some technical issues, so we may or may not get this. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. All right. We're going to do that again. You know, sometimes things just happen. Here we go.
Well, summer kickoff is here, and whatever your summer plans are, I bet they aren't as free as Florida's. Wondering what I mean by that? Of course you are. Well, Governor Ron DeSantis has dubbed the summer Florida's Freedom Summer. Families can visit the state parks for free this coming weekend, and he's lifting sales taxes for the month of July on camping and fishing items. But his latest act of freedom? Well, if Florida cities want to light up their state-run bridges at night, they can only use the colors red, white, or blue. That means no rainbow for Pride Month, no black and green for Juneteenth, no orange for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Florida Department of Transportation Secretary Jared Perdue posting on X, thanks to the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida continues to be the freest state in the union. Freest state in the union, but not, I guess, when it comes to the colors that are used. And I guess why now? Well, let's question.
So, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Their concept of freedom is you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want. That should be freedom. Freedom is do whatever you want. You heard the verse I read for you earlier, and that is, yeah, sure, you can do whatever you want, but not everything is good. Not everything is good for you. Not everything is good for your neighbor. Not everything is good for your family. Not everything is good for your community. And the Bible and God seek to teach you how to do the right thing the right way. That's the goal of the Bible, and following God, following Jesus, living like him, loving God, loving others is the goal of living well so that not only can you have abundant life, but those in your community do as well. Everyone flourishes. But this lady, who clearly doesn't understand morality at all, says, oh, well, you're just not free if you can't do whatever you want to do. And of course, that's ridiculous, as I just explained through this weird queer animal shenanigans. If you do whatever you want to do, other people get hurt, and you do too. That's what happens every single time. Every single time. So I love Governor Ron DeSantis for this. In some of his tweets, you know, I got a couple of tweets here. This is Purdue that she mentioned. Floridians prepare for Freedom Summer. Florida's bridges will follow suit in red, white, and blue. Ron DeSantis came out with this summer, the Summer of Freedom. I mean, you heard it. There's like free fishing. There's free camping, kids and family events. There's all these amazing things. He's removing sales tax on recreational items through July. There's price caps. I mean, he's doing all kinds of things and saying, no, you cannot light up bridges in other colors. That means, in addition to Pride Month, you don't get bridge lights. Like July 14th, Non-Binary Awareness Week. That is a real thing. Also, July 16th, International Drag Day. This is a real day. And I kid you not, this is a real day. August 14th is Gay Uncle's Day. These are all real things. Anyway. You understand all of this. And here's where I want to land this whole story. The reality is, it's fine when you want to take over a bridge or the Empire State Building with the rainbow flag. And remember very clearly that the rainbow flag symbolizes free sex with no rules or consequences. But when you want to light up the Florida Bridge or anything else with the colors of the country, you live in a place, well, that's just a bridge too far. For Church Public, I'm Ed Odegaard, and I hope that you will keep the faith. Thanks again for stopping by. I really appreciate you, and hopefully this was helpful to you. If it is, man, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, give a 5-star review, leave a comment, and say, I would love for you to go through the full 20 minutes of Harrison Butker's speech and just tell me everything you want to know about it. I mean, I don't know if anybody wants that, so you got to tell me if they do. Otherwise, thank you for stopping by. I love you and hope to see you soon.